Welcome to the Local Domination Podcast, your ultimate guide to get local clients fast. Featuring interviews with local marketing and lead generation experts who will show you exactly how to attract local clients and dominate your market. And now, here's your host, Doran Aldana.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Local Domination Podcast, your ultimate guide to getting local clients fast. And I'm your host, Doran Aldana, coming at you with another kick-ass episode. And this is certainly no exception to the rule. We have a phenomenal guest expert with the one, the only, Tony Booth, who happens to be not just in the contracting business for business contractors, but also a coach to contractors. So teaching them how to bring in business, maximize repeat and referral business, and really work smarter as opposed to harder. And so I thought I'd bring Tony on today to give you guys some insight on some rather unusual and often overlooked and neglected ideas that can really be powerful for any local business. And for those of you who are not familiar with Tony helps small business contractors build successful businesses. He's got a long history as a contractor himself, so he knows the game on the front lines of capitalism as a contractor. He currently lives in beautiful Georgia, and he is the host of Contracting Coach Podcast. So without further ado, Tony, thanks for hanging with us today.
Doran, thanks for having me on. Just delighted to be here, and I'm looking so forward to sharing some great ideas with your audience. And thank you so much for inviting me on.
Well, thank you for being with us, and I'm excited to dive into this as well. I know there's going to be some pearls of profit-producing wisdom we'll be able to glean from our time together. So why don't we just start off with a little bit about your background, how you got into the contracting business, and then, of course, how you got into being a coach for the contractors, and then maybe just share a little bit about how you discovered the power of community involvement marketing. So maybe just give us a quick snapshot on that if you could.
Absolutely. I grew up in the contracting business. So we had a family-owned small contracting business, and I worked there for years. That business closed down, and I subsequently went to work for one of the largest builders in the world. So during that time, I learned the difference between small business and large business, and all the tools that they had that I was like, wow, I could have used these as a small business guy. So from that, I decided that I wanted to get back and start helping small businesses and help them with understanding some good systems and practices to run the business in a better way. So that's when I started Contracting Coach about 3 years ago now, and I started doing a daily podcast that's basically free coaching for everybody. We talk about all different topics. That's every Monday through Friday. I put that out, and then I started doing some one-on-one coaching and working with clients to help them with everything from business systems to marketing and project management all the way through. So been doing that now for about 3 years and loving it. I got a great group of audience. I'm actually a little over 900 podcast episodes out there, so there's a heck of a lot of content. And I even got a small online academy where people can come in and take classes on best practices.
Wow. So I love it. Well, you've probably heard the saying of luck, good luck with your business, good luck with the game, good luck with adventure. And you are the epitome of my definition of luck, which is LUCK, laboring under correct knowledge. And the key word there is laboring. You've been hustling. You've been putting out content like it's going out of style. And obviously, that's why your following has been growing so quickly, is having great content that helps people and, getting them chomping at the bit for more. So I love that about you. I love that you're prolific in getting good quality content out there that makes a difference in the marketplace and for the people you serve. So tell us about this community involvement strategy. If at first glance, even for me, frankly, I hear it, Tony, and I think, oh, how snoozeville boring is that? That's dinosaur method, and that's like old hat, that's like marketing for Cro-Magnons, So a lot of people might have the same knee-jerk reaction and probably gloss over.
And that's part of the reason why, to me, it's starting to work again, and even better than it did before, because of that kind of snooze factor, and people aren't as involved. But, what I look at is marketing in general in your local community. For local domination, we got to build awareness. And for contractors, it's kind of starting to get that name recognition. So if somebody needs something done, they've seen your truck, ABC Plumbing, before, and they're going to call you up. And what better way, instead of spending thousands of dollars to pull ads somewhere, than to dig in and help the community in a way that directly impacts your target audience and your target market. It's a kind of a win-win on both sides, because you get to build awareness, and you're also giving back to the community that supports your business in the first place.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. And you're attaching a positive initiative, a community initiative, something that makes a positive impact, I would assume, in the community with your brand, with your company. And any positive association like that is a good thing. But obviously, there's some hitches and glitches that cause people not to do it. And so let's cover those real quick. I mean, one of the first ones would be, well, Tony, I like the idea, but I don't have time. Or I like the idea, but that sounds expensive. Why don't we hit those two objections right off the bat?
Yeah, so, and I agree, the time can always be a thing, but, you got to look at the right events and the right things you get involved in, so that you can make the best of your time. I have a landscaper that I worked with that he decided, we were talking about this kind of idea of getting out there and really getting involved in community stuff. And so we started looking around his area to figure out what was going on. And he found that there was this group, a civic group, putting on a in the park movie night every Sunday night throughout the summer. So I said, well, contact them and see if you can do something to kind of participate. So what he ended up doing was getting to be the cleanup guy, so to speak. He would bring trash cans out that had his logos, and he'd put them around the park for movie night, and then have his guys sweep in after movie night and pick it all up and haul the trash away. In exchange, the community, when they put the posters out and when they did all the stuff advertising the movie night, his logo appeared, and they put in there the thanks to him for one of the sponsors. And so for a couple hours of his guys going out on a Sunday night and picking up a few things that probably took them an hour at the most to drive there, put everything in the truck, and go home, he got some great exposure that other people that sponsored the movie night were paying hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars to get that sponsorship. So the time can be something where we find the right event that works for us, and we get ourselves out there.
That makes a lot of sense. So we want to be strategic, obviously, about the particular type of initiative that we're being engaged in. So it dovetails well with, first of all, our brand, but also our ideal target market. Now, that was a landscaping company, correct?
Yes, it was a landscaping company, and this was a local community event. So they knew that, homeowners and bringing their kids out to this thing. So a lot of those people were where he did his, lawn maintenance and landscaping were these families. And so he was like, this is an ideal place for me, because they'll see me supporting something that their family enjoys. And when they need that landscaping, they're going to give me a call.
Right. So I imagine, there's a certain amount of time involved with that if it was once a week for the whole summer. But if you have a team of employees, it doesn't necessarily have to be you being the one out there. You could be out there for the first 2 or 3 or 4 times to really set up a formula that works, and then you can empower your team to do it in your stead. So for business owners that have employees, it's certainly not going to be a time suck forever once you find a formula that works. Have you found that to be true?
Exactly. That's part of the key there is find the right formula. If you have employees, it's ideal to use them. We also did with the family business. What we used to do is in our community, we would go out and in the beginning of Little League season, and we would send a couple guys out with a piece of equipment to help get the fields ready. When they had the volunteer day, we would go out and help. So it would cost us a little bit of time for our men and a piece of equipment, but in exchange, they would put a banner at the back of the Little League field with our name on it. So that stayed up for the entire season. And we went out one time and spent, a half a day there working to help them out.
That's great. And we'll dive into some more examples in a moment, because I can tell, I'm sure you're quite the vault of tremendous ideas for these types of events. So we'll definitely dive deeper in a moment. But I just want to point out something that, you might look at it at first glance and say, well, that seems like kind of a great idea, Dorn and Tony, but, I'm pretty sure I can get better results throwing out postcards to a target market, or doing Facebook ads, or doing a mailer to my database, or et cetera, et cetera. And all of that might be true, but here's the thing. You want to build stability through diversification. And if you can add this additional pillar of community involvement, it can make everything else you're doing that much more effective, and really become a force multiplier, where instead of it just being the value of 3 strategies, you add in the community involvement piece, and makes the 3 strategies you were doing prior to that 3 times more powerful, because of the branding and the positive positioning in the marketplace, the trust, the familiarity. And that trust is the prerequisite to every sale. The more they trust you, the more likely they're to do business with you. The more they know you, like you, and trust you, the more likely it's a slippery slope that they're going to want to do business with you in the future. So a few ideas to consider to really supersize and supersauce this to a whole other level. And tell me if I'm wrong, Tony, but here are a few ideas that pop into my head the moment I think about these ideas. We could do bare bones and just show up and do our duty. We could really take it to the next level if we added a few additional strategic, proactive activities at these events. So, for example, the movie night, you could have a booth, and you could, sell popcorn. And with the popcorn, you could give a free leaflet for a free consultation for landscaping. So everyone who comes and gets the popcorn, it could be, you could sell the popcorn, you could give it away for free. But notice how by giving away that stuff, you're not only getting the exposure on all the posters and all the flyers, but you're now getting people to see that, hey, oh, you guys do landscaping. Oh, and you offer a free consultation. And oh, by the way, thanks for the popcorn, right? I mean, have you seen that kind of additional proactive activity really take the results to the next level?
Absolutely. And just I couldn't agree more with what you were saying there. And this is definitely not, it's not a sole strategy. It's not a single strategy. You gotta put it in with your entire marketing strategy. And I totally agree. Anything that you can do that in this community involvement stuff that helps drive your customer back to you in the future, whether it's the free consultation, whether it's information about your products or services that you offer, or even coupons for a half off appetizer or something like that. If they've been the movie night and they bring their ticket, or things like that, there's so many ways that we can bring this full circle. And to follow up on one of the statements you made that really strikes with me is the idea of the trust. And that's where this community involvement just starts to be that. It helps to build that trust factor. If that company's nice enough to donate time to be with movie night, or they're donating time for the community cleanup, then they must be a pretty good contractor. There's a reason why Tom's gives away a shoe for every shoe they sell,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I heard of a stunning idea for a dentist that made him a very successful dentist indeed. He came up with this idea for community involvement called Smile Palooza, where it's a family-friendly, fun event with bouncy castles and, face painting and all kinds of fun, cool stuff for families and kids. And they did it once a year in the summertime when the weather's nice. And it was all just about having fun and smiling, of course. And dentists are all about bringing out your beautiful smile and bringing out the feeling of having a beautiful smile. And so he got massive exposure. He got free write-ups in the newspapers. He got a ton of free publicity. All the local TV as well as newspaper media firms were giving him all kinds of exposure on it for free. And sure, it was money that he needed to outlay, but he had sponsors. So he brought sponsors in to cover a lot of his costs. So essentially, the sponsors covered his hard costs. Maybe even after a while, he actually turned a profit and was in a profit position from all the sponsorship money. And then he gets all this massive free exposure, and his dentistry business just blew up, and his profits went through the stratosphere and beyond, all from that one initiative of a Smilepalooza annual event.
Absolutely, and I like that you brought in the part that he had sponsors, because that's one of the solutions that I often tell some of my clients. When we talk about this, there is the time concern. But if you put on an event, it's easy enough to go find a local event planner, meet up with them and say, look, this is what I'd love to do. The movie night is a prime example. The Smilepalooza, even for contractors, I have one contractor I've been talking to, and he's looking at doing a home show for his local community. And you can go out and get an event planner that is willing to go out and work with you. You go get the larger corporations in the community, the large people that can help support that event. They put the sponsorships in. You can get some of this stuff done where it's not even your time or money other than to show up at the event.
Yeah, so you can see there's lots of different ways to skin the cat here. You can hitch on to someone else's event, an initiative. You can launch your own initiative. Obviously, if you launch your own initiative, it's going to be probably more time consuming, more capital intensive, more moving parts. But I'm assuming if you really knock it out of the park, the upside is much higher because you have control over the whole event and you can leverage it to your maximum profitability and upside potential. But as you can see, there's lots of different ways you can make this thing work for you. So why don't we dive into some more examples of different stunningly successful initiatives, Tony, that you've seen either contractors use or just any local business, frankly, use that have been a stunning success. Maybe give us 2 or 3 more examples of ideas.
Yeah, so I've got a couple that one is a contractor. He's my client, and he does dock building. And we were talking about what his marketing strategies were, and it's a lot of Facebook and Google and ads and things like that. And I asked him about some local events and stuff, and he's, I don't know, because how can I get involved in, a little league or a soccer team? It's really not my target audience. And so we kept bouncing ideas back and forth, and then it struck him that they do a lake cleanup every year, 2 times a year. Everybody that lives on the lake, a lot of them volunteer and they go out and they clean up the lake. And so he was like, that's the perfect place for me. I can go get my boats out there, help everybody clean up, and have my guys out with their shirts on. And that's his target audience. So that was a great one for him. Mm-hmm. And then another one that I've seen that's been a local strategy here that actually a partner of mine was involved in. They did a Toys for Tot ball every year, and the local restaurant that would host it, obviously that was part of their involvement. They would put the hosting on. He would go out and get sponsors to help put the whole thing together, and it was about the local businesses. So the restaurant got a great opportunity to host the event. It was everybody's admission to the event were bringing a couple toys. But it got, like you mentioned with the dentist, this thing would get news coverage. It would get all kinds of things. And with that event, one of the things that was really neat, the local photo shop, the people that do professional photos, they saw the event after the first year, and they came out to my friend, the organizer, and said, we'd love to do something special next year with you. So they made like a paparazzi screen for the entranceway and velvet ropes, and they had everybody, when they came in, they had them set up there. They would have a fully dressed Marine that would stand in with them, and they would get their pictures taken. So the local photographer obviously got to, had the exposure at the event, but then also was able to put those photos on his website. I'm sure he generated a lot of business selling those photos because everybody's dressed up for this fancy ball, and they have this kind of paparazzi picture that they were able to buy.
That's brilliant. So that's a perfect example of synergistic marketing, fusion marketing, collaborative marketing, win-win marketing, where you find other vendors, other businesses that are complementary, not competitive, and you link up with them to be able to make the event a success, and you get to share in the spoils of the event because, of course, you're sharing the same target market who, if you're doing your job right and strategically deploying this event, you're going to have a high concentration of your target market and your joint venture partners' target market at the event. So I'm curious, it was called Toys for Tots. Is that what it was?
Yeah, Toys for Tots is a drive in the United States that's actually backed by the United States Marine Corps. And it's about bringing in unwrapped toys and donating for kids at Christmas time around the holidays. So they put on this big event to basically as a fundraiser to bring toys in and donate to Toys for Tots. So as it built through the years, it just got bigger and bigger. And, the whole community was like, oh, when's the Toys for Tots gala? And, so everybody got dressed up. It was a whole big thing. The newspaper would cover it. And so everybody got a lot of great exposure with it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anything else burning as a stunning success example that is worthy of mention before we pivot and talk about some pitfalls to avoid?
No, those are the big ones. I mean, there's a lot of ways out there. I think the biggest thing is to be creative when you start thinking about this. How do you get build some awareness in your community? Be creative. There's so many ways that you can get out, do a little bit. It doesn't take a lot of time, and you get a little recognition and build that trust with your community. And, as a business owner, it always feels good to give back. The community's supporting us, so it's a chance to give back. So I think the more creative you can be, the more successful you can be with a strategy like this, and the more, like you mentioned, with the free consultation, start tying that stuff into some of your other marketing as well, and kind of get a little gamification going with it. Let people know that you're going to be, we're going to be at movie night. If you find this, then just different ways to engage. It's all about getting out in the community, engaging them in your brand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Have you ever seen community involvement work with business to business, or is it primarily a business to consumer type strategy?
To me, it's working both ways, business to business and business to consumer, because the other businesses that are involved are in the community as well, and they're seeing that you're supporting the community. It gets a lot of that together, and those people, let's face it, the people that run the other businesses are going to like a movie night, or they have kids that are in the soccer programs. And so it's still getting to that target audience, even if that person is a business buyer versus a residential buyer.
So in other words, even if you're business to business, if you think about it as a way to get awareness in the public, but even more importantly, helping those other businesses that you're either wanting to get business from directly or get referrals from, if you can have the event be a success for them and bringing more exposure and more business, then it's obviously going to tip the scales of fortune in your favor to make them naturally be inclined and motivated to reciprocate and send business back. So even business to business, now that you're starting to point this out for me, Tony, this can work for that too. I was kind of thinking this is just a consumer direct type strategy for B2C, but the more you've opened my eyes to it, the more I could see this can be of benefit to the people in the community, but also to be strategically designed to bless the socks off your potential referral partners or potential clients such that they want to do business with you. Is that the idea?
Absolutely, because it's all about building that relationship and that trust again. If you're out there doing this stuff, you're supporting the community, you're building trust, whether it's a business owner or a homeowner, it's still that opportunity to develop that relationship and trust with someone.
I love it. I love it. So tell us about some of the landmines, some of the pitfalls that we should be aware of when we go about launching an initiative like this. Some common pitfalls that would be costly, either in time or money or frustration, that we should steer clear of.
The first one that I really everybody understands is you need to know your target audience. You know, who is that avatar? Because if you're not going after, if you don't know who that avatar is, who that right target market is, and you spend money and time investing in the opera, and your target audience is not going there, then it's just like, you know, placing ads in a newspaper that nobody reads, or placing ads in the other town over. Right. You got to know first your audience and make sure that you truly understand that, and that is the events that you support are related and events that your audience participates in. That's the number one thing that I would look at. And then the second thing that I always caution everybody on is we're small businesses. We're not the big business that can afford to just throw sponsorship dollars at something and say, okay, great, I'll give you $5,000, put my logo on all the banners. So be ready to talk to people and, you know, negotiate a trade of goods and services versus money, because we can spend a lot of time and money putting, you know, our logo on things, but it's not doing us any good if it's not, you know, getting out there and it's just costing us too much. So if we can, you know, really talk to the people that we want to get involved with and find those ways to trade off our time and effort in exchange for the value back in the advertising and exposure.
Like the landscaper, for example, who cleaned up the park after movie night.
Exactly. For him, his guy, you know, it was a bonus for his guys too, because on Sunday night they got a couple hours of little bonus pay, and you know he would have been paying for a $300 or $500 a month sponsorship to get that. Instead, he paid a couple guys on a Sunday night to get a little extra time in and, you know, make a good showing with it.
That makes a lot of sense. Very cool. Well, this has been very eye-opening. You've got me thinking about my businesses and also the businesses of the clients I serve, and you got me percolating, that's for sure. So thank you for the inspiration and you know, really getting something that would normally just be overlooked, neglected, left in the closet as old hat dinosaur tactics, and really blowing the dust off it and resurrecting it with a new set of eyes to see the power in it. And this is not just powerful for a week or a month or a year. This really has a principle tied to it that's perennially applicable. And that is, do something good for the community, do something that's a blessing to those in your target market, that's a value to them, that serves them. And by virtue of it being benevolent and serving the community, it's giving us positive positioning in the marketplace. It's building our trust dominance in the marketplace so that all the other competitors who are doing the whiz-bang social media and all the other stuff are really left in the dust because we have that trust dominance that they neglected to capitalize on because they neglected to do these things most people overlook, called community involvement initiatives. So I really, really love this conversation.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of merit in it. So thank you for resurrecting what we thought was a dead old hat tactic and making it something inspiring for us to grab a hold of. Obviously, talk is cheap though. So it's all about taking action on it. So for someone who's listening to this and they're like, I like the idea a lot more now, Doran and Tony, than before we got onto this podcast, what's the next step? Let's say they're thinking, okay, this is something that really needs to get done. what would you say is their first step in really striking while the iron is hot and making this initiative fly?
The first thing I would do is just scour through my little local community boards and things like that and find out what events are coming up, what things are out there, and don't try to jump in and start your own event overnight, right? Get in there and start small. Find an event, call up the organizers and say, hey, I have a restaurant, or I have a photo shop, or I have a clothing store. I would love to see if there's a way that I can help out. I'm a small business. Obviously our marketing dollars are slim and we need to get the most out of them, but we would love to. We understand that, you have this event coming up. How about if we provided the outfit for the host to wear? Something like that for a little recognition. There's a lot of things you can do. Just reach out to those organizers because they're looking for help as well most of the time. Because a lot of these things are charitable events and they're trying to get the most for their charity. So just look for them, find one that fits your target audience, and then start reaching out to those people to see how you can jump in and help out.
And usually the city has a community events page on their website. So these events should not be difficult to find. There's usually a list of them compiled and collated already on these types of web pages. So a little Google search should be able to bring you to a plethora of options to consider. So this has been fantastic, Tony. I'm really stoked we had the chance to connect on this podcast. If someone is wanting to learn more about you or reach out to you, or perhaps they're a contractor, and if that's the case, they definitely need to be reaching out to you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I'll tell you the easiest way is just go to the website, contractingcoach.com. That's an easy way. They can find me at my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/contracting coach as well. Or on Twitter, it's at Anthony, Anthony, Booth, Booth.
Brilliant. Reminds me, if you have a opportunity to put a booth up at your event, don't forget to do that. It's not just Tony's last name. It's a brilliant marketing strategy. Have a booth at one of these events and have something cool to draw people in, to have people engage with your brand and what you offer. So thank you for your last name, Tony. Without that, I wouldn't have thought of that brilliant idea.
Awesome.
And brilliant ideas are hard to come by for me. So any chance I can get them, I appreciate the inspiration. So Tony, thanks for being with us. On behalf of our audience, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun and very insightful. Thank you again.
Doran, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody enjoyed it and got a little nuggets, and they're ready to go out and start building some community awareness.
I'm sure they did. If they have two brain cells to rub together and they have their ears half open, I'm sure they got at least one idea they can grab a hold of and bite their teeth into and run with. So thanks again for that. And that's all for now, my friends. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Local Domination Podcast, your ultimate guide to getting local clients fast. So if tips galore that help you soar is what you adore, know this, we've got more in store. Remember, nothing happens without implementation. So in the meantime, in between time, go forth, engage. It's time for Operation Domination.